Hey guys, it's Albert coming at you this week with another recap of Z Nation. This time we're covering Season 2, Episode 10, We Were Nowhere Near the Grand Canyon. And that is a filthy lie. Unless you're talking literally, because people actually hearing the show, we're nowhere near the Grand Canyon for this episode. We got like 4 shots of that thing superimposed with some special effects. And that's as close as we actually got to the Grand Canyon. But we open up with, actually with the dream sequence. Doesn't do much for the episode as a whole, but it is interesting to see into Warren's, inner life, let's say, because we start out with her and Vasquez coming into this warehouse and just mowing down a bunch of zombies, which should be your first clue that it's a dream sequence, because these two guys are way too intelligent to be using full auto against zombies and just spraying bullets at them. But it got me for a second. I was like, is this real? Is it? I was bought into it. I was like, oh, I guess they're using full auto. It's Z Nation. We can just throw away logic or whatever. And then they got going with the sexy times, and I started thinking, okay, this is too easy. And then he turned into a zombie for no reason, and I was like, yep, it's a dream sequence. And Warren wakes up, and she's like, ugh. And then she's leaning against him, and she's like, ugh. Which was interesting. I really enjoy seeing inside these characters' heads, even though, as I said, it doesn't really add much to the episode itself. It is neat to get the idea, because we have Warren as this character that's the rock. She's the leader of the group. She's, the military intelligence person who she knows what she's doing with a gun, with maneuvering around. She's been around the zombies a long time. She's tough. She's in charge. And for them to let us know, like, hey, yeah, she's got it all together, and she's never going to show anybody this side of her, but she's still a human being, all right? She's still attracted to things. She's still scared of things. She's still, like, all of those things are still there. She just knows that she has to hide all that to be the leader. And that in and of itself is a really interesting sort of little snippet of something from Z Nation that I think will pay off later. And of course, then we get into the episode as the main episode, let's say. And the tsunami is back, ladies and gentlemen. The near legendary storm from season 1 of, I don't know, I guess this giant clump of zombies has been wandering around Middle America for the entirety of however long they've been on the road, not really doing that much, but now it's here and it's heading towards where they are, and it's suddenly a threat again. I gotta say, I wasn't a huge fan of the tsunami as a plot device in season 1, and I'm not really a huge fan of it here either, because we're limited in how much we can show, right? It's Z Nation. We know their budget's not huge, and I'm fine with the budget not being huge, but something like the tsunami is very reliant on special effects. You can see things like that in something like a giant blockbuster movie like World War Z, where you have a giant mass of zombies that's coming at you and piling up and doing all these things. In Z Nation, you get a big dust cloud, and people talking about how dangerous it is and how we have to get out of here because the big dust cloud's coming. And that's not as effective. If you can't see it, like, I think the strength of a zombie show like this is more often when you play to your strengths and say, okay, we can put some people in some gray face paint and a couple of scars and have them lurch around and be personally menacing. But when you try to scale up, I don't think it works as well. But regardless, this is what we're dealing with in this episode. We are dealing with the tsunami. So they're having to run away from the giant cloud of dust that's being kicked up by zombies that we maybe see a few of, but it's mostly just a dust cloud. But as they're running from the giant dust cloud of zombies, they run into an Indian reservation. And I will say the interesting thing about this episode was to me, you can tell that the showrunners are really making an effort to include actual Native American actors portraying the Native Americans on screen. And I really respect the effort that they went to here, especially after there was a lot of hubbub about Johnny Depp playing an Indian character in the new Lone Ranger movie that came out last year, or maybe it was the year before. I'm getting old. But there was sort of some outcry about that, about like, hey, why don't we cast a Native American character as the most iconic Native American guy in cinema? And here we have Native Americans actually playing Native Americans. And in principle, I really like that. They weren't all the greatest actors in the world. With the sort of limited pool to pull from, there's sort of, you're going to have some hits and misses, especially when you're talking about a show like Z Nation. So the Chief, for my money, was a little bit stilted in his delivery of some things. And the other little problem I would say I had with it is it felt a little bit silly and stereotypical. I mean, it's a show with Native Americans. Like, this episode is the Native American episode. And it felt like they just crammed every single, like, Indian thing that they could find. They had casinos, they had bow and arrow, they had peyote, they had spirit journeys, they had Indians using traps, they were riding horses, they had the cave paintings. I mean, like, they just took the entire bucket of Native American stuff and threw it at the screen. They're like, whoa, look! Native American culture as we white people understand it. Yay! I mean, I'm not necessarily, like, that's not something that Z Nation isn't some super highbrow show that you're expecting to go way, above and beyond and have some really deep intellectual breakdown of Native Americans. But it was a little bit weak as an episode also, so I'm going to be a little bit harsher on that because I felt like they could have done more interesting things with the characters, which I will say, in this episode, the characters were actually really probably the strong point. The Native American characters, you have the Chief who's in the casino, and he sort of represents the kind of the settled old guard, people who are, they've come to accept where they are in the world, and they're sort of dealing with things as they are, and then you have the Chief's son, who is sort of younger and more hot-blooded and suspicious of the white men. And I thought fascinating moment when they have a line where they talk about, after he's rode up on his horse and threatened them and talked about the Zendigo disease, which is about sort of like materialism and things, like, and how just trying to fill the hole of, stuff and not being able to do it, and just happens to start with a Z, who just happens to start with a Z, guys. I'm sure that's a coincidence. But his sister shows up and is a nice counterpart to him, where it's like, yeah, we're not all crazy and weird. But he's going off his rocker. But she also has the line where she's like, yeah, he used to be like a professor at the university, of Native American studies. But still, it was sort of an interesting look into him as this guy who's trying to find himself a little bit. And we didn't get enough of that. I didn't feel like there was that one hint, that one line that's dropped. We see him as this guy who's putting himself forth as this warrior and this sort of leader who's trying to get back to his Native American roots, and yet we know that he has this more white-collar sort of traditional background, and the idea of him balancing all that in his mind, I thought was a really cool concept, and I'm glad they threw it in there, but it didn't get enough service in the episode to really be interesting. as the main plot is progressing, 10K and Doc get separated. They're the ones that are caught by the sun. And then our other 4 members of the main group, Vasquez and Warren and Addie and Murphy, of course, the Murphy, they end up at the casino. Addie is trying to get a message from Citizen Z up at Camp Northern Light, who's still there, by the way. Forget all my theories about him maybe not, and like just being sat up there for months and months and months waiting to hear from Delta X-Ray Delta. No, apparently he's actually been sat up there for months and months and months waiting to hear from Delta X-Ray Delta, and somehow surviving by the skin of his teeth for the entire time. Z-Nation, guys, come on. You're better writers than this. There is a better way to handle, and to be honest, because I know they're better writers than this, I was on the verge of thinking, okay, he's not gone, he hasn't progressed, his character hasn't moved or done anything, he's gonna die. Like, I legitimately turned on my episode and said, well, Citizen Z's gonna die this episode, because that's the only progress for his character, and he didn't. He's just sitting up there, spinning his wheels, waiting to be a convenient plot thread. And man, that is disappointing, because the promise of having him sort of on the run and dealing with different stuff at the beginning of the season was so interesting and so cool. And you thought, oh wow, what are they going to do with Citizen Z? And they didn't do anything with Citizen Z. Like, come on, guys. If he's going to do the same thing he always did, if he's going to be the same character and serve exactly the same purpose, why change anything? Like, let's have other cool, like, psychological drama episodes with him and stuff. Or maybe he goes on a mystery of, solving something in the base. I don't know, but to just blow up the base and then be like, well, I mean, he's still going to have his satellites and he's still going to talk to them, but he's getting zombified. People are coming after him. It's weak, okay? It's just not good enough. I know that Z-Nation can do better. I've seen them write better. I saw season 1. Writers of Z-Nation, step up your game. I'm not saying kill off Citizen Z, but do something with him. Anyway, but we did finally at least get some movement in the larger plot of trying to get Murphy to California, with Citizen Z giving them the coordinates. Addie gets the coordinates, and of course, the tsunami is still very slowly threatening them. The dust cloud is still headed their way. 10K and Doc get in a little bit of trouble, including Doc taking a spirit journey with the peyote, which was admittedly pretty fun. Doc as an actor is really great, and 10K, of course, ends up meeting a beautiful woman who he's going to see for one episode and never see again, as we know that 10K does. 10K ladies at this point. I mean, it's just like Bond girls. Always meeting up with somebody. He's not... Z-Nation is the story of sexual frustration. Mostly for 10K, although apparently also for Warren. But it's... It doesn't ever really have that much weight for them. A couple episodes ago, when 10K and Murphy were being menaced by the zombies in the collector's warehouse or museum or whatever he had, that felt like really real. I was like, oh no, they're gonna die. 10K and 10K and Doc ending up in the traps with the zombie coming for him. I was like, nah, I don't buy it. This is not how they die. And Doc even says, he's like, this is not a place where we die, which I will say, I love the Z-Nation weirdness of how they get out of that, because, and this is going back to season 2, episode 2, when Doc has the out-of-body experience and talks to himself about the knife on top of the shelf. You guys remember that? You remember that? I was like, I believe that was an out-of-body experience. You're not going to convince me. And now they're doubling down on that. They're doubling down on the Doc astral projection stuff, with him now manifesting as like some ancient warrior thing with a mask and like weird face paint, and he kills the zombie as his actual body is in the trap. Love it. Love the weirdness that Z Nation embraces with all this stuff. They've done it twice now. I at this point I'm a little leery of saying that, oh, this means something. This is going to be developed into something greater. But man, it would be great. I mean, I know they have a 5-season plan, right? Like they know where they're going, and their little hints of things being developed like this would be great if Doc becomes some kind of psychic projection spirit warrior, or gets killed and comes back as a ghost and is Ghost Doc. I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself. But them establishing all this weirdness that is possible, especially specifically with Doc, with all of his drug use, is a lot of fun. Of course, him and 10K eventually get out. The Indian lady shoots one of the zombies with a bow and arrow, because, as I mentioned, if you got Indians, you gotta shoot one with a bow and arrow, I guess. And they get back with their friends at the casino. All the stuff at the casino is still running, by the way, which I kind of liked that they were still able to have their technology up and going, but I kind of didn't buy that they would keep the slot machines running. It seems like a lower priority thing to me, but you know, it's the casino the guy built with his wife, so it's sentimental or something. Let's say that. Don't need to think too much about it, I guess. I'll spend all my energy over analyzing the Doc thing and just let this one slide. But they, you know, again, they talk about like, oh, the tsunami's coming, it's a big deal. And again, I don't understand the giant deal about, I mean, it's just a bunch of zombies. They say it's just a bunch of zombies, and they're like, no, you don't understand. And I'm like, no, I don't understand. What are they gonna do? And then you have the scene. They leave the casino behind. The chief guy's like, no, I'm staying behind. This is what I built with my wife. And they look back, and in the background, the casino just falls over, like just collapses into the ground when the giant dust cloud hits it. I don't care how many blasters you have. Zombies do not beat concrete and steel. That is not how zombies work. Do something else. Like, have them... I guess you needed to have some kind of visual representation of the thing falling or whatever. That needed to take place quickly in the visual shorthand of the show, but... Man, it was weak. It didn't feel like it really could have happened in any universe, even the Z Nation universe. Zombies don't just run into a building and make it fall over. And without the special effects to back that up, without like showing like some mass of zombies piling up against it and pushing it over somehow, it didn't quite work. Which is disappointing too, because the part that comes next actually does work pretty well, but it felt a little bit rushed. So they, again, because we're doing Indian things, because this is the Native American episode, Doc kind of gets this bright idea like, hey, you guys used to sort of shove buffaloes over cliffs and kill them that way. Why don't we do that with the Indians? And we're here at the Grand Canyon. So let's drive them off into the Grand Canyon. And the setup for this and the music that played during them setting up for the driving the zombies into the Grand Canyon was really a lot of fun. The sequence was well shot and interesting. A lot of cool like slow motion stuff and cut together in an interesting way. It showed all the characters doing something and working on getting the fire going up. Although, are zombies afraid of fire? I don't know how that rule works in this universe. I want to see some zombies be on fire. I'm just gonna put that out there. Like, let's have some fire zombies. They can walk around after they've been damaged, so ostensibly they could come after you even when they're on fire. That's a cool concept. Fire zombies are the bomb. But whatever. In this show, they're not. They're afraid of fire. Okay, so they make the fire funnel, and they start to, funnel them towards the Grand Canyon. And Murphy, at the last minute, freaks out. He's like, no, we can't do this. And that was the moment. Really, the setting up was actually all fine, but I wanted more of that. It was just like not even, 20 seconds of him like falling down screaming, but it was the best thing in the episode. I mean, really, Murphy screaming about don't kill them, they can feel, is like, for me, obviously, I've been saying since the beginning of the season, like, guys, I think these zombies are still kind of human. I think the whole thing with Murphy sort of being the bridge of gap between human and zombie, like, I think they're going to find out that they actually can feel. That's going to happen, and it's happening! I was right, guys. This guy right here knew what was going on. But, it kind of just comes and goes. It's just like, oh yeah, zombies can feel, alright. Is this not a big deal to the characters? Is that not a huge revelation that the zombies have, like, any kind of feeling? And it's, to be fair, it's not a new thing, right? Like, we've seen it in the past. We've seen with the Z-Weed injection, whatever, batch 47 or whatever it was, that the zombies can be brought back to a certain degree. With the one was able to only yell brains, but still, like, there's still something there. And for these people who have lost actual people that they actually loved, to find out that those people still retained some sliver of humanity, it should have more weight. It needs to have more weight. It has a lot of weight for me. It obviously has a lot of weight for Murphy. And yet they're just like, well, nope, we're doing the plan. We're killing all these people. And as a mass, it's fine. But if you go back to season 1 and the idea that, like, what does Warren do with the fact that she mercied, I can't believe I forgot his name again, but I forgot his name. But the original leader of the group, she loved him, was close with him. They were friends. And he turns Z. She has to put him down. How does she deal with the fact that maybe there was something left in there and she could have saved that? How does Addie deal with the fact that Mac may have still had something left in him that was human and she could have, had that back? And it's a struggle back and forth because obviously we saw what partial zombie can be with Cassandra and how it's not really the same person. But I mean, I don't know. From a philosophical standpoint, if I'm in this apocalypse and I hear Murphy say they can still feel, I want to know more. And, I mean, maybe not at that exact second, but it's a little bit ludicrous to me that there isn't more delving into that. But we do get a really cool shot of zombies jumping off the edge of the Grand Canyon. One of the 3 or 4 shots of the Grand Canyon we got was maybe one of the best special effects that we've seen this season, of just a whole giant herd of zombies hurling themselves down into the depths of the Grand Canyon. And I can't imagine that hardly any of them survived. Although I do like to imagine that eventually, like, if there was enough of them, there was sort of a padding, and you have a bunch of zombies that are just sort of broken bones, but heads still intact, so they're kind of just like flopping around down there, clogging up the Colorado River. Regardless, apparently, at least for now, the tsunami has been dealt with. And we close with Warren going on the bus and talking, the sort of casino shuttle thing or whatever they have, talking to Murphy and saying to him, like, hey, whose side are you on here? Don't forget who's trying to save your life and who wants to eat your brains. And I gotta say, I'm more on Murphy's side than her side right now. Obviously from what I said earlier, but I understand from her perspective. She's like, listen, they're zombies, we gotta kill them. But do we gotta kill them? Like, Murphy has been saying since season 1, maybe there's a better kind of mercy. Maybe there's something else that can be done. And, man, Keith Allen, the actor who plays Murphy, is so good in this scene. Like, as just someone who's broken and who can't make a connection because he had this, this moment of connection with all of these zombies as they died and burned and fell, and this huge sort of psychic link, because remember, he's hooked up to them mentally now, especially if they're in the vicinity. And with the tsunami, as many of them as there are, like, he was in all of those heads as they died, and he felt all of the fear and the pain and whatever it is that they were feeling as they died. And to have Warren come on and say, like, hey, listen, we're trying to keep you alive. They're trying to kill you. The zombies, for the most part, aren't trying to kill him. So, like, some of the weird ones, like the blasters and things are. But the regular horde, he could have walked right through it. He would have been fine, except for the blasters. He could have survived the tsunami. So it's really difficult to be on Warren's side here for me. I understand where she's coming from. I understand as a character, it's like, they're not going to stop trying to attack me just because they're trying to attack Murphy. But Murphy's, again, straddling that world. He's between those two worlds. And she says to him, there's going to come a day when you're going to have to choose. And I think that day is coming. And I'm not sure Murphy's going to choose the humans. I mean, we've seen what kind of person he is, and we've seen what he's capable of. But he protects the people that he feels close to. And if he starts to feel closer to the zombies than to the humans, I think that he's going to choose the zombies. So we'll just have to see. I mean, they've renewed it for a 3rd season, so we have at least that long to develop what's going to happen. I know that the Z Nation guys, the writers, have plans for up through 5 seasons. And I would like to see them develop over that time, but Murphy's going to go through some stuff. Murphy is the biggest change that we're seeing in this whole episode, this whole series, and it's going to be ultimately, it's going to be his show, and it's going to be interesting to watch. So, I don't know. I'm excited to see what happens. Next week, we got some weird corporate thing. They showed a preview, and I still have no idea what's happening next episode, so maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't. I will say, I'm not rating these on stars or anything, but this episode was middling for me. I didn't quite, reach any heights of high, but it wasn't like, oh, we're going to suffer through this. It was just sort of an average, okay episode of Z Nation, which I'm gonna nitpick here. We've had too many of those this season. Z Nation is better than that. The writers are better than that. I loved season 1. There were only a few that I felt were maybe just okay, and this season has had more of them. And I'm challenging you, Z Nation writers. I know you can do better. I'm not crapping on your show, okay? I love the show. I'm enjoying what you're doing, but I enjoyed it more in season 1. Get that mojo back, guys. Season 3 is coming up. You're in the writer's room probably right now. Get that mojo back and get strong and keep moving the story forward. But keep having fun, too. Until next week, I'm Albert. If you like this video, click like, subscribe if you want to see more like it, and I'll see you next week with another recap of Z Nation.